Welcome to Pushing the Limits, the podcast that gets deep into the psyche of extraordinary achievers across all genres, cutting to the chase to unlock the secrets of their success, their achievement, philosophies, and motivations. Join us in the quest to find out what makes the movers and shakers of our world tick and what gems of wisdom we can learn from them. Now, over to your host, Lisa Tamati.
To the show, Tony Marsh. Tony, g'day.
Hey, Lisa.
How you doing?
I'm very well, thank you.
So, Tony, you're sitting up in Auckland. I'm down in New Plymouth. We're doing this over Skype, so hopefully we'll have a good connection. But Tony, so for the people who don't know who you are and your story, your journey in life, give us a bit of background about where you come from, where you're born, how many brothers and sisters you got, all that sort of jazz.
Yeah, great. So I'll give you a quick rundown. So born in Rotorua as a twin, which is another story in itself. But yeah, grew up in Auckland, in South Auckland and Rotorua. So grew up there. I've got a older brother and sister also. Grew up there. Mum and dad were obviously into their sports, whether that be rugby, swimming or netball. So I guess in some respects it was pretty natural that my brother and myself and the rest of the family were involved in sports at some level. And I think back in the day, maybe it's a little bit different these days with society's changed a little bit, but back in the day, everything revolved around sports for us. So,
yeah.
Whether that be rugby, whether that be cricket, touch, football, league, athletics, whatever, it was just full on. And pretty much any time that we could be involved in sports, whether it be in a club environment or at school with our mates, we're doing that the whole full time. So
it's a bit of a Weet-Bix kid upbringing, sort of a good Kiwi boy upbringing. Yep.
Yeah, how times have changed.
Yeah, definitely. We can get on to that one a bit later.
Yeah. So and then probably the two main sports that I got involved with were cricket and rugby. And as we got older and got, I guess, a bit more serious, seasons started to overlap. And so I had to make a choice, and I always played rugby, so it was always going to be rugby. And probably, to be honest, probably the sport that we're probably more half decent at. So went down the rugby path, and at the time it was amateur, but I was lucky that when I come on the scene, I guess within a year I'd gone professional. So I got a couple of lucky breaks, so to speak, as you do in sports, and I guess, got into playing pro rugby here in New Zealand in the early days when it was Super Rugby, well, it was Super 12 back then. Yeah. A couple of years.
Early 2000s or late?
This was 97.
97, yep.
So I had a year, I was playing at counties with my province, and then had a year at 97 with the Auckland Blues, so I didn't play a hell of a lot that year because at the time the Blues were pretty much the All Black team.
Yeah, stacked with All Blacks, yep.
Yeah, and then the following year I went down to Crusaders, so I had a year there, which was great also. So won the Super 12 2 years running with different teams, and then end of 98 I went to France. So I had a contract with ASM Clermont-Ferrand. Signed a contract without knowing pretty much where I was going to or what I was getting myself into. But 1998 I went to France and had 9 seasons at Clermont-Ferrand, and then over a 4-year period playing for France also. So
how did you get to play for France? If I can stop you there for a sec, because you haven't got French blood in you or anything like that?
I haven't. So, I guess like me, growing up back in the day, the ABs were it, and were the sort of, I was no different to anyone else. Being, I had a few idols growing up, and my goal playing Super 12 was to play international rugby. And when I went, I was 26 way back in 1998, which sort of really wasn't done. I was one of the first that went at a younger age, so to speak. So I thought, going to France, that I'd cut myself off from international rugby. But the fact that I hadn't played for the All Blacks and that I had lived there 3 years as a resident, it qualified me for the French team.
Wow, that's fascinating. Because this was back in the era. So my brother was Dawson Tamati. He was sort of in that era too, in the early days of the professional, and he went over to Wales, and then he played for Bristol. And yeah, he was trying to get into the Irish team because he couldn't quite cut it over here. At that All Black level, he was in the Super 12s. What was he in the Hurricanes team back then? So that would have been a similar sort of era, eh? So you've got to take your opportunities where you can get them, and representing a country is a pretty cool thing, no matter if it's New Zealand or France.
Yeah, it is. It is very, very cool. I guess I'm lucky and fortunate. I ended up playing for France, and it's not probably a second-rate international side, so to speak. So, but
Hell no.
I was lucky. But yeah, I don't know. I got asked a question when I come home from France. Is like, would you change your 21 tests for one game for the ABs? It's a question, isn't
it? Yeah, that's a bit of an unfair one, really. You don't always have the opportunities, and you got to just take them where they come, I suppose. And that's a pretty high level to be able to reach. I mean, the French are always pretty serious contenders to playing the All Blacks. So who's the better one? Don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just fortunate. I guess I got the chance to play international rugby and for France, and so I'm just grateful, really.
Yeah, absolutely. So this was like a 12-year-long career, basically, your international or your professional rugby career, all in all. What sort of things did you learn during that time of being an athlete? So being a professional athlete is the dream for a lot of young Kiwi kids, me included. And I think, it's interesting to try and understand what sort of a lifestyle is that. It sounds so glamorous when you hear these guys going off to all these exotic places and playing for this club. What was it really like?
Yeah, it doesn't. It's funny because I think I'm actually really fortunate that I got to play in both eras, so the amateur era and the professional era, so to speak. So when I started playing rugby, there was no money in it, and so it was never a goal to play professional rugby. And to look back and do what I've done, I probably would have done it all for free anyway. It's just how it was.
Yeah.
But I think again, and when money comes into things, it changes. No matter what it is, things change.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when I played club rugby, it was just turn up, train. Well, maybe it wasn't quite train 2 nights a week and turn up and Saturday play. There's a little bit more to it as well, but. We trained hard and we played hard and we had a good time at the same time, but we all worked full time and had our jobs, but probably there with the right attitude, I think, or the right values around it. But then again, like I said previously, I got the chance to play pro rugby and to live your dream or your passion every day and get paid for it. You'll understand this, Lisa. It's just amazing, I couldn't wish for anything better. But there are challenges that go with it. I think straight away when you're getting paid, you're open to, I guess there's criticism from all different angles, whether it be your peers, whether it be your coaches, whether it be supporters or the general public. There's that side to it. But being an athlete, I think we're very fortunate as well because and I don't think, no matter what high-end athlete you are, is that I think it opens you up and you get to experience things which I think is hard to replicate and
life, yeah.
And I don't know how you replicate it. So there's a lot of emotions that go with it. So there's a lot of highs, but there's lots of lows that go with it. There's a lot of ups and downs, but I guess you take an example of, there's a great side to it. You're doing a bit of traveling, although that can be laborious at times, but there's that side to it. You're meeting new people and experience new countries or cultures and so on. And you're potentially running out in front of 80,000 people, which is
that must be something else.
a bit of a highlight. But there's the other side to it where, you're potentially battling every week, to get up and to perform at every training during the week, trying to beat your guys alongside you, whether that be in the gym or fitness session. You're vying for selection every week. You've got to get up for your game every week. You've got to perform every week. So
that must be really
goes with it as well, which sort of people sometimes forget.
And is that sort of like, I suppose even in the last few years, it's probably even gotten, worse as the professional side of things has developed, that constant pressure to be on your A game. How do you cope with that when their seasons are pretty much the entire year? They don't even have much downtime anymore, whereas the old guys in the old days with amateurs, you had your rugby season and you had your off season where the body could recover, the mind could recover. But to be on this high performance spike, pretty much you have to be like that, 10, 11 months of the year. That must take a hell of a toll.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough, like physically, but also mentally as well.
Yeah,
so physically, you're getting thrashed every week, so to speak. And I guess the good clubs or the good coaches sort of look after you, but it's not always the case. Going to France is a little bit different because the clubs are paying you, so they want their money's worth. So even if you're injured, as soon as you can run, you can play, sort of thing.
So it's, a pound of flesh. You do. It sounds like the dream come true, but there's a pound of flesh that they extract that can have really long ongoing problems too. You've got that performance, you've got to perform regardless if you've got a dicky knee at the moment and really need another couple of weeks off, but you've got to get back out there, you have to have a cortisol injection, get back on the field or whatever it is. That sort of pressure has long-term effects, I think, probably on a lot of the young guys now.
Yeah, I agree. And if there's a game that you're 100%, it's very rare. You're always carrying niggles or, bits and pieces, which you aren't 100, but that's the nature of the game, especially when you're playing a physical sport, I guess. But
and that's the other thing with rugby. You say, like, my sport, you're running, but you're not getting tackled. You're not getting actually beaten around the head, concussions, actual physical brute force hitting you 100 times a day. That must have a really different type of problem set.
Yeah, and it can do, especially the tough games. You can take, 3-4 days to recover, depending on the game and how tough it is and the contact, and it just can vary from week to week. But I've had, talking about that, injuries and so on, I don't know, I can't count the number of injuries I've had, but in terms of operations, I've had around 15.
Wow.
And so only just sort of coming to terms with, maybe I have battered my body a little bit. Now I've got to look after it a little bit more. And I guess that the plus side to that is that I know my body really well, what I can and can't do. And, if I'm going to do such and such, I'm going to, potentially struggle the next day. So it's just been smart now, that's all. And that comes with age, probably.
That wisdom with the age and the creaky bones. Yeah, because after your rugby career, you also got into Ironman and half Ironmans and doing triathlons. What was that like for a transition, going from being a big, strong, and it's all about power and strength and speed, coming over to an endurance sport where it's about handling it for the long period, about being lean, about being super fit in a different way. How was that transition?
That was tough. Yeah, I really, really struggled. So the hard part for me is that it was very humbling, and the fact that coming from a sport where I was,
you were the man,
top of my sport, where you come into something else where you're pretty much at the bottom. So I couldn't swim 20 meters when I started, but I'd never really ridden a bike, and, probably most distance I'd ever run was probably something like 12K. So it was a hell of a change for me. But I remember playing rugby is that when I looked at these guys and thought, hey, that'll be pretty cool to do one day. And I'm someone who likes challenges. So I went, hey, let's do it. But humbling in the fact that, you're lining up on the start line and you could be running against, skinny old white man or it's a female carrying a little bit of weight, but they'd turn around and
whip your ass.
So it was just like, it meant nothing. And so there are a lot of lessons learned in that, and it took me quite a while actually to get over myself.
You got to check the ego at the door, when you're starting these new sports, and you're going back to being the new kid on the block, basically the grommet on the scene. Yeah,
hell yeah! I've done a few now, and I think I just accept that. To be honest, I was a little bit. Well, let's say I was average, so and struggled a bit with it. But it's definitely definitely some learnings in it. But yeah, it was another great journey to get out there and try something different. That's for sure.
And a huge achievement to go, from being a top rugby player to being an Ironman, and it's a completely different sport. And to to put yourself out there and be the beginner again, I think that's pretty cool, really.
Yeah, that is cool.
So, what you said you like challenges. So what is it so where did this inner drive come from to be the best that you can be, or what is it that you wanted to achieve in your sporting career? Did you want to be the best? Did you want to be number one? Did you just want to have a great time and experience all this? What was your driving force, your purpose?
Yeah, it's funny. There's probably a couple of things to it. Probably number one is that I was a twin, so was all competing against my brother. Yeah. I didn't care about anyone else, but when we grew up, I was competing pretty much on a day-to-day basis with him. I had to be better than him.
Yep.
The fact that I grew up in a family where it was all about being your best. I remember my dad, and this is one thing that I'll carry on for the rest of my life, is if you're going to do something, do it well. And his saying was, you only get out of it what you put into it.
Yep.
And so I think, to me, that's life, and that's no matter what you're doing, whether it's your sporting career, whether it's your work, or whether you're a parent or whatever it is. You want to be the best you can at it.
Yeah, see, that's a good segue actually into achieving your potential and having that good basis in your childhood of. I mean, I grew up same with a dad who was really tough, and he expected a lot from us, and that was what was valued, and that stays instilled in you, to this day. I'm still trying to impress Dad,
Yeah, it is. And it's about having standards within yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, discipline, I always had discipline to go out and do things and work hard, because if I'm honest, I probably wasn't the most talented athlete.
Yep.
Mine come from a lot of hard work, so it was just about being better and just out there on the training field, just practicing. So it wasn't really a lot of natural talent, so to speak. Yeah, sure, I had some, but a lot of it was more about hard work. And I've always had to strive really hard at whatever I've done, whether it be education or whether it be my sporting career. Always had to, give it 120% to get anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, so you've never had anything, handed to you on a platter. I find so much like the people that I respect the most in the world of sport are the ones who weren't the ones that were talented, the ones that have had the hell of a struggle getting there. But if you give me two kids and one's super talented and one's just bloody minded and determined, I'd take that kid any day over the super talented one.
Totally agree there. I've seen it like 100 times over, the guys with the natural talent, and they sort of take it for granted.
Yeah.
But when you get to a certain level, I think everyone else catches up, and it turns around the other way, I think.
But if they haven't learnt, those kids that are...
in them as well.
What's that, sorry?
You want someone with a little bit of character, especially playing rugby. You want someone that that's going to be there, and that they've got a bit of attitude or
bit of fight.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because I think a lot of the kids who are talented and have never come up against obstacles before, they just had it. They everything that came to them easily. Then when something hits them in the face, an injury or someone actually being better than them, or a coach who's given them a hard time, or whatever life throws at them, then they end up crumbling very quickly. Whereas the one who's had to fight more is more resilient. They've had to push from the get-go a little bit harder than would be average. And I think that's not a bad thing to learn, that resilience of character, being able to fight through different problems and then overcome them.
Yeah, and hey, that's life with anything again, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And
we always got obstacles, no matter who we are, or that there's always obstacles coming up in life. It's just how you deal with it, I guess.
Yeah, it's getting through that obstacles and never taking things lying down and giving up, I've been listening to a podcast yesterday of a guy called David Goggins, who's someone I totally admire. I raced against him in Badwater, and he was a ex-Navy SEAL plus a Ranger plus something else, and he's known as the toughest athlete on earth, and 6'5", 260-pound massive dude, and then he decides he's going to do Badwater and the toughest races on earth to raise money for charity. Go figure. Yeah. And he did it, and his story though, coming from very poor child abuse, father was abusive. He grew up in South America, US, where being black wasn't cool. Being called the N-word all his life, and he had all these sort of things stacked against him. But he decided very early on that he was just he knew where he was going, and he had to take control of his own life. And I think that's a sort of character, and that's a sort of message that I try to get across, in my interviews and with people like yourself. People look at you from the outside and they go, wow, super successful, amazing athlete. Yeah, he's probably had it all handed to him on a plate. It's not quite the case. No. And when you moved in, so later on, or was it early 2000s that you got hit with a really shit diagnosis with your cancer?
Yeah, I don't know if it is a shit diagnosis. I think
so a hard one. It's a curveball, isn't it?
2001. So it's a funny one. I don't know if you want to go into how I got diagnosed and all the rest.
Yeah, I'd love to hear the story. Love to know if you want to share.
It was funny because I was, 31. I was in my prime, so to speak, playing good rugby and fit and healthy, or thought I was. And then I got injured, and so I had to have an operation. But coming back from injury, over the season, I'm assuming that it's the same here in NZ now, but over the course of a season, we'd have 3 blood tests where they just check up to make sure that we're, health-wise, we're all fine. There's no problem. So I had a test that come back, which was a little bit problem where it had changed my hormone level. So the doctor said, all right, we have to wait 2 weeks and we'll do another test. So waited 2 weeks, did another test, got hauled up into the manager's office and said, hey, there's a problem with this test. We think you're taking drugs because your hormone levels have changed.
Serious, really?
And so it was a bit of a shock. And they said, hey, are you taking drugs? No, I'm not taking anything. So they said, okay, we'll wait another 2 weeks and we'll do another one just to make sure. So and I was fit. I was ready to play again. So I wasn't allowed to play. 2 weeks later, I had another blood test, and I got hauled up in the president's office the second time round. So,
wow,
same story as like, hey, you're taking drugs, your test, right?
That must have hit your honour, like hit you fair in the face because you hadn't done anything wrong.
and it did. I was taking supplements, but
as you do,
there's always risk to supplements that you take. So all my supplements were sent from New Zealand, so I knew they'd all been tested. So I was sure that there's nothing wrong with my supplements. So they sent me off to a specialist who gave me a 40-minute lecture about the consequences of taking drugs, and then said, I better examine you. And then within about 10 seconds, he said, you need to see another specialist.
Oh, really? So then wow.
So, I was diagnosed with testicular cancer. And then that was in Paris. Had to go to Paris, had some tests done, diagnosed with that. The club let me know the following week.
Wow.
They let me play the following week.
Yep.
And then the week after, I was back in Paris getting my tumour removed.
Shoot.
So had that done, and then I had a course of chemo for over a 6-week period.
Shoot. So how was that? What was that like? I mean, most of us will hopefully never go through that.
I think, again, I'm one of the lucky ones. So there's cancer and there's cancer. So I got treated in a cancer hospital in Lyon. So there's everyone in the hospital had some form of cancer. So there's, babies right up to the elderly. And, I saw a whole lot of people there, and I just thought, man, I'm just so lucky here. I got it nice and early. I was in there for 6 weeks.
Shoot.
So, I was counting my blessings. So
So you looked at it with an attitude of being grateful, really, rather than, oh, woe was me and poor me.
Yeah, and I think you have to, I think no matter what situation, there's always people that are worse off than you.
Oh, yeah.
No matter what it is, and this is definitely my case anyway. So I think I knew that I was going to be fine and I was going to get through.
Yep.
Obviously, my family back here are a little bit worried and being so far away, but it's funny, when I rang them up and told them, I was like, I don't want you to come up. I want to deal with this, especially when I was doing my chemo by myself. I didn't want any negativity around me, so to speak. And
absolutely.
Some of that's natural, obviously, but I just wanted to deal with it and just be, stay positive about it.
And be surrounded with people who are going to help you get better rather than worry, too much worrying.
Yeah, so it all worked out well. To be honest, after that 6-week period, I was pretty knackered. I was starting to feel a lot of this secondary or side effects to it.
Yep.
I put on a lot of weight, believe it or not, but just really, really tired. And so that would have been April or start of May. I finished that, and so I had a focus, I guess, as I've been selected for the French team to go to the World Cup about 6 months later. So that was so got back into training straight away.
Yeah. Do you think that actually helped you, like having that focus to?
Yeah, for sure. In the early weeks, I couldn't do much. I was going for walks and a little bit of cycling, but it was pretty low key. But definitely having that focus of being, and there's no guarantees that I was going to get there, but having that focus of playing for France again was definitely a big plus and a goal for me again, to get back on my feet as soon as I could. So no use feeling sorry for yourself,
Yeah, see, that's a real key, I think, to recovery, is having something big to focus on, so that you're not focusing on the negative situation you're currently in, but you're focusing on the steps that are required to get you back to where you were.
Yeah, and I guess that was a little bit different. But in life, I think you've got to have purpose, no matter what age you are. And we'll talk about, I know you're a little bit of the story your mum's been through, but if she's
exactly
purpose and she's got a focus in her life, she wants to wake up every morning and, strive to do something.
Yeah, she's fighting every day, and that's key. I mean, just for listeners, Mum had an aneurysm a year ago, and pretty much the doctors gave up on her, and that she wasn't recovering. So 3 months of rehabilitation, she was still in very, very poor state, vegetative state from the beginning, and prognosis wasn't good. But because I'm an athlete and because my mum has got the same mentality as I've got, even though her personality was knocked out, she did whatever I told her to do. And that, I think, was key, because she didn't give up. She never moaned. And she still doesn't. Every day, I've just had her in the hyperbaric treatment for the 130th time. She just does what is required every day to get there. And never complains and never moans about it, and just powers on through, and it's a hell of a road. I mean, hers is a really big, long road, but for me, it's an amazing journey to watch someone come back from absolutely nothing to who she is again today, and so rewarding for me, because you have to believe, like it's with your cancer too, you have to believe you are going to be there again. You have to believe in yourself and your own recovery, and that you're going to be back on top. Even when all the prognosis is, you're probably not going to, and the chemo will do this and whatever. You've got to have that inner belief in those, if this, I'm going to do it anyhow. I think that passion and that grit and that determination to pull you and to prove that you can do it is a really powerful motivating force.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess that old cliche is, those tough times make it, they're tough, but they make the good times even better.
Yeah.
It's that journey, I guess, of going through it. You know what you've been through or how hard you've worked to get there, and so it's all the more satisfying, I think.
Oh yeah, and it's nothing more beautiful. And then you treasure too, I think, when you've faced death, where you've faced stared something down like that in the face, you you do realise how precious life is. And that must have been hard as a 31-year-old super fit male to be confronted with a possible, near-death situation or, a terminal situation that could have developed if you hadn't got there and been able to face that and realise your vulnerabilities, you're fallible. Because you do think you're bulletproof, don't you, when you're young?
Oh, of course you do. And especially being an athlete.
Yeah, you're even more so.
On top of the world fit, as I said. But yeah, you do think you're bulletproof and, life's really good and, you're living that dream. But yeah, you're brought down to earth pretty quickly. I think, without your health, again, and maybe it's another cliche, but without it, you got nothing. So yeah, grateful again.
Grateful. So now moving along, so you decided to, when did you finish up your rugby career?
So I finished playing in 2007, so I had a year off and did a little bit of study and went back to my club in France where I was a strength and conditioning trainer.
Oh, yep.
So I had a year there, returned home in 2009, and I returned to uni to do a graduate certificate in exercise science.
Yep.
So completed that, and then up until the end of 2015 was employed by New Zealand Squash as a strength and conditioner.
And squash, that's an unusual one. Yep, yeah.
So it's just been good as well. It's good to go into, I think, other sports. You realise sort of how good we had it in rugby. You turn up, win or lose, you still get paid, so to speak. Where in squash, a lot of the other minority sports, everything's about you're driving it all yourself. It's your passion, and you're paying your way. No matter where you are.
I'd love to go and talk at some rugby clubs, sometime in the future, and just say, look at this perspective from another athlete's point of view on how good you guys have got it. You get access to everything. You get given, like all the money, all the support, all the medical, everything you could possibly wish for. And I think that's a lot taken for granted because in 99% of the sports out there, and ultramarathon, included, obviously, you got to build the stadium and train for the Olympics at the same time. You're doing it all yourself, and it's a completely different ball game, really.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, we've got it good. I think there's definitely challenges being a rugby player and a high-end athlete, but again, comparative to a lot of other sports, we've got it really, really good. So I know guys who are, potentially in their prime, but they're stopping their sporting careers is because they need to start living and, saving
money
some money for the house and, and having kids and all the rest of it.
Yep.
So...
yeah, and that life does come at you sometimes, Yeah, and you've got to sort of roll with the punches. So you did a postgraduate. So did you do a degree, or did you just on the strength of your background you did this postgraduate?
No, so I did what was equivalent to a degree, but I did it for a senior student, I guess, so a graduate certificate. So it wasn't postgrad.
Right. Yeah, it just interests me because that's what. Yeah, I'd like to add that to my list one day to do. So moving along from there, you've got into being recently. You've started a new business. Let's have a talk about that.
Yeah, so I've started two businesses.
Two businesses.
So the quick one, which right now I'm just kicking off, is actually using my networks and both here in New Zealand and France, is just connecting people and bringing French players and coaches into New Zealand to do training camps or courses.
Oh, wow.
So that's about to kick off. So it's just about to start marketing to France now.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the big ones is Auckland and Canterbury both have international rugby academies. So predominantly working with them, but also looking at working with some of the other clubs, whether it be the Chiefs and Blues and so on. So
just bringing in so they get a different perspective on coaching, on the...
Yeah, and just upskilling and getting another perspective on training. And they can live and breathe it every day.
Yep.
So, courses vary from anything from a week up until a full rugby season.
Wow. And you just bring these guys over and they join on to a club here, or how does that work?
Yeah, so depending on what type of course they're doing, but if they're playing, they can either play amongst themselves or they can go into a club environment here.
Yep. No,
Yeah.
that's very cool. And your other business, which I've
The
had a
other
little
one,
bit to do with.
again, being involved in fitness at different levels over a long period of time, I saw a gap in the market or niche in the market, where one, either people were failing to connect with the right fitness experts or training buddies, and two, on the other side of that fitness experts was hard for them to either market themselves and do it for them at a reasonable price. So I launched a fitness app in January of last year where, in a nutshell, I was just connecting people with training buddies and fitness experts and trainers that match your interests and location. So, for example, if you want to find a training buddy to go run, surf, ski, bike, kayak with, you're able to connect with someone near you. Or if you want to go do a yoga, CrossFit, you want to find yourself a PT or nutritionist, you're able to do that through the app as well.
So and that's so if you're travelling to an area, you can look up on the app and find someone locally to hang out with and do something with, or a massage therapist or that type of thing.
Yeah, correct.
And so how did you get into that? Because that's like technology.
Good question, yeah.
You and I come from the same era. We didn't grow up with all this stuff.
How's
that working for you?
It's funny because in 2014, I decided, hey, just looking ahead and where I was going with my life, I was like, okay, am I satisfied with this? Am I going to be doing this in 5, 10 years? And that, although I'd created I'd gone back and studied and was involved in high-level sports and that, I thought, in 5 years, I don't want to be doing this. Things had slightly changed and I wanted to think a little bit bigger. And I think I'd sort of limited myself with where I was going and what I was able to do. And I thought, hey, I want to think a bit bigger. So I went, yeah, I'm sure my background wasn't apps or IT, but I went, well, what's going to stop me? That was the sort of attitude that I took with it. So, yeah, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of, times I was thinking, shit, what am I doing here? Or,
I bet.
way outside my comfort zone. And there's been a lot of challenges that have gone with it. But I was like, well, I'd rather do something or try something and give it a crack. So rather think big and try something and fail than rather do nothing and succeed. So I took that sort of attitude.
Do you think that comes from what I truly believe is that when you've gone through the crucible of high performance sport and being a top end athlete and pushing yourself physically to the absolute limits, you discover that actually the world is your oyster, and as long as you're healthy and you've got agency over your body, you can achieve anything that you really, really want. So that you start to understand that everything is all just about learning about it. So if you don't understand technology, you can go and learn it. And especially in our day and age where there's everything available. So if you just dive in and then pull yourself up by your shoestrings is what I find as an entrepreneur. I've gotten into all sorts of businesses, for better or worse. Some have, been successful, some not so. But I've learned so many, massive skill set along the way.
Totally grow. It's all been about growing.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've been way outside my comfort zone and mixing with people, who talk another language. And I felt like an idiot at times, but it's that process again of going through it and educating yourself, learning, growing, and the journey's been cool, Again, I took the attitude of if in 12, 18 months' time, if it all turns to custard, am I happy to lose that money or the money that I invested in it? And it was like, yeah, sure.
Yep.
Sure. If it's, lucky, I guess, that I had a little bit of money set aside to be able to do that. But it was like, yeah, sure. It's not all about that. It's about that growth side of things as well.
So you're a risk. You're willing to take risks for your dreams.
It's funny because it's taken me 2.5 years. I haven't monetized the app, but it's taken 2.5 years of work, and that's been nothing. All it's been is my time.
Yep.
Some money, but it's given me today an opportunity to partner with some guys who are doing here in Auckland, who are doing some pretty crazy stuff and are are leading the sort of tech space. So
Wow.
it's given me an opportunity to partner with them. So where that leads to, I'm not quite sure right now, but yeah, 2.5 years just for an opportunity, and that's what it's all been about for me.
We can check in with you in 2 years and see whether you've how it's panned out. Because isn't it an exciting time to be living with? I mean, sometimes the technology, because we're both in this technology space with our businesses. I've got an online coaching platform, and you're learning all the time, and I get so frustrated with being stuck on a computer and trying to understand this new language, and it is a new language. But at the same time, I can see the huge potential, and I can see that you can impact so many more people than the one-on-one. So you've come from like strength and conditioning coaching, where you're working with one or two athletes or a team of athletes, but through the wonders of technology, you can actually reach thousands, millions of people. What's to stop us? And that's what I find exciting. The technical side of it drives me absolute bonkers. But once again, it's learning a new skill set, eh? And as an athlete, you know, okay, I just got to put my nose to the grindstone. I got to practice and learn and practice and ask for help, network, and try and understand it. I think,
but what we're doing now is pretty insane, or what we're going to be doing is pretty out there, and it's never been done here in New Zealand, so it's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
But, along with that, I guess, is that transition period of transitioning out, and you've mentioned, as going from an athlete into an entrepreneur, which is in some respects
very similar.
A lot of the skill set is the same.
Yep.
Yeah, in terms of what you're doing, or on a week-to-week basis, the setup of your week, your goals, and how you get there, and working towards that, and the people you surround yourself with, the right team, and so on. It's a lot of the fundamentals to playing or involved in high-end sports. This comes back to business.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And not all of them, obviously, but a lot of them, I think, and the same values, or the discipline and so on that I've had with sport has, made it a lot easier for me. That's for sure.
Yeah, it trains the entrepreneur mindset, I think. And that's why I think a lot of athletes are actually ideally suited to this more risk-taking life and this more interesting and life after sport. And that's
I think the other thing is, and I don't know if it was for you, though, I'm assuming it's the same, Lisa, but when you finish your rugby career, and you've done some pretty cool stuff, and then it's like, what's next? And there's a side to it which is like, cool, my next phase of life, I can start afresh and do something else, and there's other challenges that go with it, but there's a side to it which is pretty scary as well. It's like, shit,
who am I?
What now? And I think, it's like the question is like, in a year's time after I retired, someone's going to ask you, oh, what are you doing now? Because I expect that you're doing these huge and wonderful things, because that's what you've always been doing.
Yeah.
But it's not always the case. So there's challenges. I think we have standards or expectations upon ourselves, I guess, is that we need to be doing this, we need to be successful, and that's a little bit where the space is I am as well. I want to be great in my life and be good at whatever I do. And it's funny, I spoke to JK, John Curran, a while back when I was playing rugby, and we're out one night, and out of the blue he says, how are you going to be great in your life?
Ooh, shoot.
Post rugby, and it's just like, whoa, I'd never really thought about it, but I guess it's a good question for everyone to ask themselves. How am I going to be great? And it goes back to, I want to be the best I can, no matter what I do.
Yeah, and I think it's really important for young athletes to hear this, or athletes who are perhaps like us transitioning into the post, career stage, where they don't know who the hell they are, because your identity is so tied up with you. If you've been this high-end rugby player, you have a certain amount of status, you have a certain level of fame, you have a certain income, you have a certain reputation. With me in ultramarathon running, you have a certain expectation that you're going to be doing these epic things every bloody week, And I, I dread the question. So, what are you doing now? And I'm actually going, I'm doing so much, but I can't explain to you that it's not quite as epic as, it doesn't look as epic on paper. But actually, what I'm doing is for me, more epic than what I've done running-wise. And I think that transition is something that we need to discuss more with athletes, that life isn't over because you've finished one game, or one sport. You are still an amazing person with a whole new skill set that now you can take into other projects, into other dimensions. And that's an exciting transition, scary as hell. And your identity suffers sometimes. I mean, I think you and I are very, very similar in that we're realizing that life's short. And, oh, shit, it's like an awakening of, I've realized I haven't done all the things that I want to have a crack at, and so now I'm trying to do them all at once. And sometimes I've got to go, whoa, you're getting stressed out, pull back and try and do something properly, instead of scatterbraining yourself, which I tend to do, because you want to be great. You want to achieve not greatness in the sense of I want to show off to everybody, but greatness in the fact that I don't want to waste my life. I want it to make it a difference in the world. I want to be able to have financial freedom. I want to be able to look after my family, all of those things. And you start to realize as you get older, it's like, oh, crap, I'm running out of time here. Whereas in my 20s, it was like, oh, this is great. Adventures all around the world. I'm a selfish little athlete who could do whatever they like, Now you've got responsibilities. But I think that's, a very interesting area for us to be discussing, because it's so important for athletes transitioning to realise there is life after sport, and you don't necessarily, because I don't know about you, but in the last few years I've been faced with that dilemma. Do I keep going even though I actually don't have that drive right now? I don't want to go to a place of hurt every 5 minutes. I don't want to absolutely terrorise my body. I've done it. I've been through that crucible. I've reached mountains tops that I'm proud of, and I want to be able to look back down now and go, yeah, did that. Don't need to be doing it right now. I'm in a different phase.
And I'm exactly the same. Exactly the same. Yeah. So I think if you look at my transition, you'd go, oh, he's doing some pretty cool things, and from the outside it sounds great, but if I'm honest with myself, I'm still transitioning out. So that's 8 years later, I'm still going through my transition period outside of pro rugby. So you look at that and it's pretty scary.
Yeah. It's a big mental thing for us to change, but to realise that we have an innate value and an experience bundle that we can take forward instead of panicking about who the hell am I if I'm not this running chick,
Yeah, it's been prepared and ready for it. I think right now, and we've seen a little bit in the last month or so with suicides and athletes struggling with things. My personal opinion is that we're only scratching the surface. Is that we're going to see a whole lot more athletes struggle when they come out of it. And Lisa, you spoke about you're in this environment where you're in a bubble, really, where everything's laid on for you. You're getting paid, you're traveling. All you have to do is turn up and train, and it's easy, so to speak. And you're babysat, but then reality kicks on. The day you play your last game or you do your last event, next day you wake up, you're unemployed.
You're just Joe Average again, but with a whole lot of skills. Yeah. If you know how to transition. Once upon a time, people would still employ you. Yeah. When in my early days of my career, people would employ you. But now it's like, well, what are you going to add to our business? You need to add value to what we're doing. So it's not the same. But so I think there's huge challenges, and there's going to be huge challenges for a whole lot of our athletes to come. But it's about being prepared and being ready for it. Yeah, and valuing yourself, because you aren't your sport. That's just a small part of your personality. And as athletes, we can all, like you and I, are still going to be super fit when we're 70, God willing, because we're still always going to be, we're going to be always training. We're going to be always, holding our body in high regard and giving it the best that we can. But we don't necessarily have to keep repeating the same thing in order to be considered still there, And for me in my sport, that's quite hard, because a lot of the ultra marathoners are still doing it in their 50s and 60s and 70s, and still doing incredible things. So there's no excuse for, well, you're 48 now, you can sit on your laurels and she's sweet. But when you've been doing it for 25 years, actually, do you need to be keeping doing that? Or is there something else in life that you could actually be investing your energies, your considerable energies in? And that's where I think having the businesses, having the projects, giving back, coaching, whatever it is that you're going to get into is the way forward. And just understanding your identity, your sport is not who you are. That is a piece of your life, an important piece, but only, don't think you're nothing because you're now no longer an All Black or a Blues player, whatever it is. You know.
And it's hey, you got to accept, I guess it's not going to be the same.
No.
Life's not the same. Can you be at the top of your game, the next day when you finish playing rugby and your new career, Guys take years or years to become great athletes or great businessmen or whatever it is. And so it's the same thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
I think it's just accepting that as well.
Yeah, and taking those skills that you have learned, actually counting those skills, looking at them and going, shit, I have learned how to organise, I have learned project management, I have learned discipline, I have learned to fight through injuries, all these, look at what you have achieved and then use that as your springboard to the next great thing that you're going to become. And I intend to have new careers as I go through life. Like, you and I are both saying we've got different businesses going, and they're in areas that I never would have started. I haven't, made documentaries, written books, or started a hyperbaric oxygen clinic, for crying out loud. I had no background in that a year ago, and here you are, because you look at opportunities that come your way, and sometimes you take on too many, by the way, but anyway, you look at opportunities, you go, well, that's really exciting, and I can learn what I need to learn. If I can't, I'll go and find somebody who will help me learn and get there, and joining up and networking with top blokes. I mean, that's why we're talking, because we know that I can learn stuff off you, and you can learn stuff off me, and we're in the similar sort of space, and it's exciting,
It's really, really exciting.
Yeah.
I think this has been like, you can go back and have a look at my career and go, well, I was reasonably successful, but the focus now has been successful now and been, doing some new crazy shit and being,
absolutely.
Growing and the next phase of my life. That's what it's all about now. So.
And, I've been studying lately a whole lot about altered mind states and getting into your flow state and high performance in regards to your brain. And this is fascinating, because you realise, hell, there really are no limitations. This is all constructs that we've built in our heads. And, you get into that brain space and how much the brain and the body are integrated and how much you can influence your whole world view, your thought processes, what you can achieve, everything. The potential is huge. And now we live in a day and age where we're so lucky that we have access to all this knowledge. All you got to do is not use the computer for Game Boy or playing some rubbish, but actually go and use it as as a learning tool. It's the greatest tool, and we've all got it at our fingertips. I think it's a really exciting time to be living in. And here you are, with a new app, and you don't want to let that cat out of the bag, but you're doing something big, obviously, with technology. Oh, I can't wait to hear about it.
Yeah, for sure. I've actually just bought me a couple of books on all this stuff. One's The Super Brain, Unleash the Explosive Power of Your Mind.
Oh, wow. I'll have to swap books. I could tell you, there's one, and for the listeners out there too, this is a really good book to go and get, called Stealing Fire by Jamie Wheel and Stephen Kotler. Super intelligent guys, but they're all about flow states and altered mind states. So tapping into your potential more regularly. And we do it as athletes at certain times, or an artist does it when he's painting a picture and he's in that flow state. And it's about achieving that flow state at will, and using the brain. Neuroscience, all of that sort of stuff. It's cutting edge, because the brain houses all our problems and all our potentials. And if we can just, tweak it here and there and improve our way we control our brain and how it controls our physiology, then we can achieve huge things. So exciting times, eh?
It is.
All right, Tony, now we've nearly come to the end of the podcast, and it's been a really interesting. I hope the guys out there and the girls out there listening come away with a new way of thinking and a new sort of inspiration and ideas behind things. And you've got to know Tony Marsh a little bit more and what he's up to and what he's in space. Now, Tony, if you were just to give us an unabashed advert for your app and your websites and all your social media, where can people find you?
So they can find me. So for my rugby website, it's www.bpronz.com.
Mm-hmm.
B is B, just the letter B, pronz.com. And for the app, it's www.iamapp.co.nz.
Wonderful. And get on to iamapp. I'm already on there. You can join up how do the people join up? So as a fitness professional, you can join up.
Yeah, you can. So right now everything's free. So whether you're a user or a fitness expert, so log in, download it, and then you can sign on through Facebook, and then you're ready to rock. It'll take probably, if you're just a user or looking for a fitness expert or someone to train with, probably take you about 30 seconds.
30 seconds to work it out. It's pretty intuitive. You can work it out pretty quickly. And it's an exciting new thing. That's from Tony Marsh's I Am app. Okay, go and check that out, guys. And Tony, any last words of wisdom to impart to our listeners? If what's your message that you want to get across?
It's probably about, being happy and doing whatever makes you happy is the most important thing, and that enjoyment or fun factor. So I'm assuming it was the same for you, Lisa, but when I played high level sports, it was all about, enjoying myself. I think no matter what level you're at or no matter what you're doing, if you're not having fun or enjoying it, you're not going to be there, or you're not going to be 100%.
Yeah.
So I think it's a big factor. So find out what drives you or what you're happy to do or what you're passionate about, and go, no matter what it is, whether it's, work or doing some form of exercise or whatever, but, find out what it is that drives you or what matters to you, what's important to you, and go about
creating your life.
Just doing it, yeah.
Yeah, because finding purpose, isn't it?
Sure.
It's
life is very short.
Yeah, life is very short, and both you and I have been faced with situations where we've come to realise how life is short, and I think people need to follow their passions, and that sounds like a bit of a cliche, but if you find your purpose in life, then you'll never have to work a day again, as they say, and we're trying to do that, hey, for better or worse.
Yeah, we are. And I think that's funnily enough is actually. And then this is probably probably a key message is keep it simple. So the challenge today, especially with our lives with work and how busy we are, the challenge in life, I think, is to keep it simple.
Yep.
So, and so simple to me, and this is where I want to go back to the source and go back to the things that matter to me. The things that matter to me has been connected with either my family, my friends, my partner, music. Obviously, I love my music, good food, good company, good wine, and being connected with nature as well, enjoying that.
Yep.
Whether that be out on, having a surf, or whether that be going for a walk or whatever it is. But, at the end of the day, those are the things I think that matter.
Yeah, and we're a long time under the ground once it's over, so make the most of it.
Yeah.
It's definitely a good note to end on there. So, Tony, I just want to thank you very, very much for taking, all this time out of your busy schedule. And we will reconnect on this podcast maybe in 18 months' time when we can see where Tony Marsh has got to.
Great. Fantastic. Thanks, Lisa.